connected directly to your learning? What if everything done in your classroom is clearly connected to what you need to learn and do? There's no extra little pieces. And what if you had multiple opportunities and ways to demonstrate what you know and understand? This is the foundation of standards-based learning. And this is why, or one of the big reasons why we are moving to standards-based learning, is to be able to provide that for our students. So that brings us to the what. What is standards-based learning? So standards-based learning is a system in which teachers are able to give feedback to students about their proficiency or their mastery towards these defined standards. And it's a way for the school and the teachers to report out how a student is performing on those standards. It's a way of assessing and reporting that describes the progress, but it also is a way that students can demonstrate mastery of a set of standards, and so that they can move, when they're ready, more rapidly towards those challenging standards, or maybe they need a little bit more time on some of the standards that are more challenging to them. So that brings us to why. Why are we even switching? Why are we doing this switch? One of the key pieces of standards-based learning is providing targeted feedback. If you know what you need to do in class to get to that mastery, to meet those standards, you're better able to achieve them. It gives you that feedback from your teacher to say, these are the things that you need to do. It gives us the ability to align classes. So whether you're in my class or Miss Elliott's class, for example, if we teach the same exact course, your coursework is aligned. Meaning, in my class, if you turn in a signed syllabus, and I say that's worth 25 points, and Miss Elliott doesn't, in her class, give you 25 points for signing a syllabus, that means my course, in a sense, is easier than her course because I'm already giving you an additional point value just for turning in a signed syllabus. So it allows us to align our courses. We work together as teachers to make sure that what we're asking in one course is the same as the other course. It also provides greater accuracy in reporting how we're progressing on standards. Right now, when you receive a grade in, for example, your math class, that's made up of a whole slew of standards that you're learning throughout the whole unit, or the whole year, or that whole semester. Right now, if you were to ask, if you looked at your report or your grades and you had a B, that's great. But what does a B mean? Does it mean that you know all of this one standard and none of the other? Does it mean that you're struggling? Where are you struggling? What pieces could you do better on? What pieces do you already know and can move away from? So standards-based learning allows us to take a look at those standards and say, how are you progressing on that exact standard? And then that final piece, the grades are not dependent on a high stakes assessment, but rather on a body of evidence. And that means that right now, when you look at the way that your classes are set up, some of your classes are weighted differently. Some of your classes have a good majority of your grade coming from your final assessment. Instead, what this is saying is throughout the unit, we'll be collecting various pieces of evidence, exit tickets, quizzes, maybe small like thesis statements if you're doing writing, that you'll collect as a piece of a body of evidence to say whether or not you can do a standard. So it's not all just going to be based off of this end assessment. So let's talk about what this would look like in the classroom. In our classroom, we are working right now with in professional development to develop these student-friendly proficiency skills. Student-friendly proficiency skills will tell you what is your target. How do I receive my grade in this class? What are the things that I need to do? And I'll show you an example in just a minute. This will tell you exactly what you need to do, but it also allows you to set a goal based off of that. Awesome. When I came in, I have no idea what the standard is asking me to do. Maybe my teacher gives me a pre-assessment. And based off of that pre-assessment, I now know exactly what I need to work on. It also lets you get feedback through your classwork and your homework assignments. That feedback is going to help you do better on your assessment pieces. So it'll help you to do better on those pieces that we're collecting for that body of evidence. And then at the end, your body of evidence will be what makes up your grade versus just having that final assessment. Your grade will be made up of maybe some classwork assignments, maybe some projects, and also maybe some traditional assessment pieces. The big piece is your grade is going to be given after you've had multiple opportunities to try something. So, for example, it's not necessarily fair if the first time I ask you to add and subtract fractions, I then at the end of the day say, hand this in, you're going to get a grade for it. Because you've never had an opportunity to practice it, and you've never had an opportunity to get feedback from me as your teacher as to what you need to do better. So once you have had an opportunity to practice something, then we will be taking that assessment page for that body of evidence. And we're going to have questions at the end. So this is an example, this is a teacher example of what a proficiency scale looks like. A 3 is the state standard. It is given to us by the state that every single school has to follow. Every single student in, I believe this is high school algebra, has to be able to do this 3. A 2 says, these are all of the things that you need to do. These are all the pieces that will help you to get to that 3. And then there's that opportunity for a 4. An opportunity for a 4 says, I can demonstrate beyond that standard. Let me show you how. I can do these things that can take it a little bit further. So you'll always know what your target is. As a student, you'll receive something similar. It doesn't have to be exactly this, but something similar to this. Where you're going to have your 3 as your target. That's what you want to get to. They're written as I can statements. At the beginning of the unit, you'll get what's called a student-friendly proficiency scale. These proficiency scales walk you through what you'll need to do within that unit. And you can go through and you can say, yep, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Oh, I can't really do this. That's an area where I need help. That's an area where I'll need help from my teacher. That's an area maybe that I need to make sure that I'm doing that piece for my homework. That's an area that I need to make sure that I focus on in order to better the unit. Because if I can do these things, then I should be able to demonstrate proficiency at a level 3. And then it gives you also the target, which I know is kind of cut off because we have the pictures down here. But it gives you that target of, can you get to here? Can you get to a 4? Maybe you can. Not everybody is going to. And that's okay because our state standards say this is where we're trying to get to. So when we're talking about final grades for next year and how we will be reporting those out. As of right now, K through 8 will be reporting their final grades as 4, 3, 2, 1. So on a report card, they will, instead of getting A through F's on their report cards, kindergarten through 8th grade will be getting 4, 3, 2, 1. Why? Because they match with our proficiency scales. Throughout the entire unit of study that you'll be doing, you'll be graded as a 4, 3, 2, 1, whether or not you've met that standard. 9 through 12 will also be graded on a 4, 3, 2, 1, but their final grade will be reported as an A through F because we'll be converting that final grade. The reason we are converting that final grade is because in high school, you'll be receiving transcripts to be able to go to college, and you'll want to have that A through F on those transcript pieces. So, let's see this. It's loading very slowly. There we go. So what does this look like? Okay, so for each unit, or for each piece that you will be learning, there are standards that are designed by Colorado, the state of Colorado. They're actually designed by Common Core, and the state of Colorado has adapted them to fit us. We have these standards. Your teacher will give you a unit based on that standard. Throughout that unit, your teacher will be assessing you on it through various different forms of assessment. Some of those will be exit tickets. Some of those will be classwork. Some of those will be small little pieces. Some of those could be a big assessment at the end. As you go through that unit, your teacher is going to be collecting those pieces of evidence. Remember that those pieces of evidence will be after you've had an opportunity to practice. Your teacher will then take a look at all of those scores and say, well, here, this final score is going to become a 3. Yes, they got it up to a 4 one time. However, a majority of the time or consistently, that student was able to get to that 3, which means that they are proficient on that standard. That standard then, for this example, was for reading for all purposes 1, or reading standard 1. So when we look at our report card, if you're kindergarten through 8th grade, your report card would then look, your final grading category would then be, these are the standards within that reading standard, standard 1, standard 2, standard 3. That score becomes one of those scores. Your teacher will then take a look at those scores and say, for this one particular group of standards, this category, you have received a 3, you are proficient, so in reading for all purposes, you have received a 3. For a K through 8, to get a reading grade, they're going to look at your language arts piece here and determine your final grade. For high school, we will convert that final grade by averaging that final piece. So if you can see, and I'm going to put these little pieces here. For high school, that's going to then convert, if these are your grades, that will convert, it's coming up on the screen with the 2.5 or a B. The 2.75, sorry, or a B. When we're talking about putting in our section for our grades,
Jaden Midweiler, please head to the middle school music room. Jaden Midweiler, please head to the middle school music room.
High school will be using a conversion chart. And this is what our conversion chart would be, a 3.0 on our scales, remember our proficiency scales. A 3 is the target, that's your standard, that's what you want to meet. If you can meet the standard, awesome, you have an A. If you can make it past the standard, great, you're going to continue going and you still have that A piece, but it'll help with that GPA piece for high school. A B would be that 2.5 to 2.99, a C would be a 2.0 to 2.49, a D would be a 1.0 to a 1.9, and then below that would be that F. And again, that's for high school only. So that brings us to the end piece where we wanted to open it up to anybody who had questions about what standards-based learning is, why we're moving to standards-based learning, and the beginning pieces of what this will look like for next year in your classrooms.
So like on my Canvas thing, will it still give me a percentage, like a number, or will it just say 1, 2, 3, 4 on the Canvas?
So
we're
still working on how Canvas is going to be reporting that out. But for right now, your grades will end up looking very similar to an overall grade for
But
your
like on
pieces.
Canvas, just on Canvas, will it still say percentage?
That's what we're still working on, whether we aren't working with percentages. So you'll be working with 4, 3, 2, and 1. You won't have our percentage, and we're still working with Canvas to make sure that they can adjust some of their pieces on there so that we can then report these out as 4, 3, 2, 1. So how about like prioritize other things? Okay, so I'm hearing a couple things. Did you want to answer that? Because I'm having trouble hearing all of it.
Yeah, definitely. So being able to submit something within a set period of time is not in and of itself a standard, right? Like, none of your standards say you're able to write a 5-paragraph essay within a week. So in some regards, yeah, you're right. If something happens and you're not able to turn something in, then ideally now you won't get a big credit. Now that doesn't mean you can wait the entire semester. Some teachers will end up putting on deadlines at units, so that you do have to get something turned in within, say, 6 weeks. And if you don't do that practice early on, you probably won't do the things later on. But yeah, I mean, you are right. There is a little bit of variability in there that you won't necessarily get penalized for late credit. Yeah.
And I feel like that takes up the motivation to which, like, you wouldn't realize would be additional important until we get to the final plan. And even at the final, if you're able to pull it off, it just like gives us, oh, we don't need to do the practice anymore. So, like, is there a way that you're practice, or is it you should fix it?
I think a lot of it is focusing that practice into the real world application to where it might actually be interesting and motivating for you to do it. But as far as forcing someone to do something, it doesn't really happen. And yeah, I mean, it does place a little bit more importance on you to try and do those things. Some of that could be taken for granted, but you're right, probably not all of it will. But I would also challenge that thinking a little bit to right now, where is everything you do in the classroom for a grade? Right. Most classes, at least that I see, not everything is for a grade right now. So it's kind of following that same concept. So things are definitely made for you to do, and you'll have check marks to see how far you're going and how well you're doing up until that point. It's not just going to be no points up until this final test that you take it and I got to do that. Yes, sir.
So if you have 2 3s and 2 2s, if you have the ability to get up to if you have the ability and you've shown your teacher that you have been able to get up to that 3, there's going to be a couple of things that are going to happen. One, you have the ability to have that conversation with your teacher to say, you know what, I would really love it, another chance to try and redo, resubmit, work on whatever I didn't do so well on that 2, because remember, you're going to receive feedback from your teacher. So your teacher is going to be telling you, you know, you did a great job on this, but you were missing this in your thesis statement, for example. That gives you the opportunity to take that feedback and say, great, can I add this to my thesis statement? Can I do whatever it is that my teacher gave me feedback on and resubmit it to get to that 3? But if you are showing your teacher consistently that you can get to that 3, then your score should be a 3. Can you answer Lori's question?
We do have a question from a user, participant, sorry. When you say practice, would it ever be possible that a teacher expects the student to practice on their own? For example, the student has to do self-study separate from assignments from the teacher.
Not for grade. Are we talking about like homework?
I'm not sure. When were you talking about practice?
I think best practice from teachers would be that if they are going to take anything for a grade, that they would actively practice that in the classroom and then give feedback on it and then give that to students as a data point for an assessment. I don't think anybody would tell a student to go study something independently and then expect to take that as part of an assessment.
Especially not the first time. The teacher's not going to say, today we're going to study, I keep just saying adding and subtracting fractions, and today we're going to study adding and subtracting fractions. I'm not going to teach you a thing about it. I want you to go home and do it on your own, and I'm going to assess you tomorrow, right? What we're saying as far as practice is, maybe class period 1, you're learning the brand new concept, right? So on a Monday, they learn that brand new concept. During that time, your teacher is going to give you feedback. That feedback could be them walking around the room and saying, hang on, wait a minute, remember you have to do this and this and this. Or wait, your piece is missing this piece. It can be feedback in Canvas where they're correcting your paper and giving that back to you. So that will take some, in a sense, self-direction from our students to say, I've got to look at the feedback that the teacher is going to provide me. And then maybe Wednesday is another practice day, and maybe on Friday will be the first time that they say, okay, we've had 2 days that we've practiced this. Now you're going to submit an exit ticket. Now you're going to submit a piece that we're going to use as your body of evidence.
Wait, so does it average your final grade, or does it says like on one of the sides that it just takes your most common?
It takes your money. In high school, yep. In high school, we will average the final grade.
So only in high school average?
For the
So
final grade.
So if I get 3 4s, 1 1, then I still get a 4.
You would still get a 4, but that 1 would be then that conversation piece between you and your teacher to say, what happened here? What was going on? When did you get that 1? Was that 1 at the beginning of the unit because you didn't know the concept and then you learned it throughout? Did the 1 happen at the end of the unit? Did something happen along the way that allows your teacher to have that conversation with you?
If you don't talk, then
To say,
if you don't talk, then your teacher.
but that's what standards-based learning is that design. It includes that piece where teachers are going to be giving you that feedback and having that communication with you to say.
If you get a lower than 4.
If you get a 1.
What happens if I get like?
Your target is a 3.
But what? Okay, let's say I get 3 3s and 1 2. Then will my teacher talk with me, or she just give me a 3? Like.
That's fine, but they'll probably ask you. Try to reflect it.
Right, you'll be asked, what supports do you need? You'll also be setting goals each time. So as you revisit those goals, and in some of your classes now, your teachers have started slowly to set goals. Not all classes, but some classes, where you're going to be looking at that pre-assessment data and you're going to be setting goals from that pre-assessment data to say, these are the things that I need to work on. And then you're going to be regularly looking at those goals and saying, am I meeting those goals? Am I not? What do I need? What help do I need from my teacher to meet those goals? Do we have another question?
Yes, it's a really good one. Is standards-based learning able to be incorporated into problem-based learning, and is STEM planning on doing this?
Yes, so problem-based learning and standards-based learning fit so well together because a lot of what your standards are asking you to do, if we're asking you then to apply it in a real-world situation, we're giving you a lot more of those opportunities to show a 3 or a 4 when you're doing those problem-based learning units with your teacher. So it's assessing you in a way that's not just true, false, multiple choice, take the test on paper or Canvas. It's assessing you to see if you can do those standards in a real world situation.
So the other thing is like, when you think about it, it's like not everybody's learning at the same rate, right? Like there's some people who are actually how is that like, let's say they come to or it's like really want to come on, that's a big all-time hero. So it's not really learning at the class. Like, how does it work?
So what it's allowing you to do is it's allowing for differentiation within the classroom. So it's allowing teachers to better meet the needs of the students that are in the classroom. And to say, these students already have a 3, now I'm going to give them this like the ability to push it beyond that piece to try to get to that 4. It also gives the students who are at that 2 the ability to say, okay, I need to work with those students to try and get them up to that 3. The collaboration piece will be the same as the collaboration piece that you have right now. Because right now you collaborate with people who are at different levels, right? You just don't, and you won't know necessarily if your partner is at a different level than you, just like you don't know that now. So the collaboration will still continue to happen because students will still be able to have, even if you're working, let's say your assessment piece, we'll call it an assessment, your data point is at a 2. Your teacher's still giving you opportunities to try and show that you can do an activity, an assignment, a project, something at that 4.0 level. So they're not just saying, oh, you're in the 2 category, you can only do this, right? They're going to continue to push you to be that to achieve a 3 or achieve a 4. For some students, that's going to come easily and they're going to get there right away. And for some students, they're going to need more support to get to that piece. And that's what standards-based learning allows us to do, is to build in that differentiation into our classrooms.
Like the same assignment, like when you say that students will be like having the opportunity to get like will they be given similar assignments or like the same assignments as somebody plus 3 or 4?
There's going to be different pieces to that. So you're in, for example, like in your PBLs, it already allows for that inherent differentiation. So I turn around and say, I'm building my PBL off of a 3.0 standard, but I'm asking you to take it a step further by applying it into different situations, by explaining it. Some people can explain it really well. Some people cannot, right? And that will be that inherent differentiation already within PBL. In the classroom, your teacher probably already differentiates these pieces, but we don't label them as 3.0 and 4.0. For example, and I keep going back to math, you're doing a math problem. You might be doing a math problem. You might do it really well. The person next to you might be struggling with it. Your teacher might come over and say, hey, awesome, explain to me how you did that. The explain how you did that is a 4.0 activity, right? You're taking it to the next level. It's not just about a 3.0, can you solve this problem? Now I'm asking you to explain what you're doing. I'm just being more intentional with how I plan my units. I'm being more intentional with saying, I need to make sure that I either ask you to explain, maybe I add a question onto the assessment that says, explain how you got your answer, justify how you got your answer. Some people can explain it, some people can't, right? But I'm giving you that opportunity constantly. It's not like you're gonna get a different worksheet from this person, from that person. You're all getting the same thing. That makes sense. I'm having so I can't hear this thing over my head.
What's like the term of art, like age? What's our standard? Is that?
So right now, how does that match up?
Yes, I think the standard, like, is the standard.
The standard is still your target, still your A. Even right now, your target is still to meet that standard and meet that A. What we're just doing is we're saying we want an intentionality behind it. We want to be able to give you the opportunity to go beyond that standard and not just stop there because the state says that's what you need to achieve. We want to plan units that allow for that opportunity to go beyond that. Right? Like it's a way for teachers to think through how they're planning what they're going to give you the opportunity to show. No, AP and CE is governed by their own. So CE, it follows, he'll help me. Yes, by AP and CE.
Classes are gonna stay the same. So it's gonna be a 0 through 100% system. It's the same thing that's going on right now. It's not gonna change.
So we actually had that question through Zoom. So
Okay, cool.
Were they able to hear the answer?
yes, I think so. Carissa also typed it.
Okay.
Do you have a question? Okay.
So the reality is that your day-to-day probably won't change a whole lot. Your classrooms are still going to be the same. Your class is still going to be the same. There's going to be a lot more intentionality behind what your teachers are planning and the pieces that they're going to pick to take your grade. They won't be taking a grade every single day when you come to class. Because every single day you come to class, taking a grade is just checking off whether or not you can turn something in. Instead, you still might be turning something in. It might not be worth a grade that day, but your teacher is going to then give you that feedback that you then will need in order to do better when they do take that grade from you. Jen, are you able to hear that? I'm sorry, I can't hear this.
Yeah, so in terms of a rubric that you get on the assignment, it's gonna be those proficiency scales that show you the different grades outcomes to reach whatever that standard. Okay. Some teachers, we've talked about using rubrics that they've already had to show feedback. And they're already kind of so you may still see those, but those will be more towards getting feedback from your teacher. Your actual grade or assessment will come from that proficiency scale. And you're right, not every assignment hits every single standard. So different assignments will be attached to different standards. And when you do that assignment, you take that as a data point that you can do not one standard on a 1 through 4. And your teachers will align those to all the assignments that you guys are turning in. It'll be multiple times. Yeah, and the whole point behind that is some days you do things really, really well, and some days you just have an off day, right? So you shouldn't be punished. If you know how to do something and you can prove that you know how to do it, then you shouldn't really be penalized like a letter grade just because you had an off day one time, right? And that's why we take the low, right? Whatever you show the most often and most consistency for it, that would be the actual letter number that you get. Does that sound good?
So she's looking at a question.
Okay, so the question was, will proficiency scales look similar to rubrics? I'm going to show you the student-friendly one because it's probably the easiest one to understand. They're similar to rubrics in the aspect that they have levels. Level 2 is up in the yellow, level 3 is in the green, and level 4 is in the blue. So they're similar in that aspect, but they're not like rubrics where you're going to have, in a sense, individual pieces that are not part of the standard. So currently, your rubrics, some of them, like I know that I would have rubrics that would say teamwork. Well, I'm giving you a grade on whether or not you can work together as a team. That's great, except for that's not a standard from the state standards. So that's more of a work habit. And why is your grade being affected based off of that piece? Teamwork is important. It's absolutely important. We'll be looking at those in a separate way. But when we're talking about your actual grade, your grade should be based on what does the standard say you can do? And that's that 3. What is the standard asking you to do? I'm sorry, not say that you can do, but asking you to do. And that's that 3.0 piece.
She said thank you.
I can't tell whether or not someone can hear me. Yeah.
You have the opportunity to like 3%.
Uh-huh.
Would that be applied also like for assessments? Like would you have the opportunity to like redo tests?
Yes, so there will be, it'll be up to the teacher. What we are asking the teacher, or what we are asking of our teachers is that when a unit ends, that they give a specific number, that they give a certain number of days for you to be able to review the feedback that you have received, to say, oh, that's right, I forgot to do this piece, or that's how I was supposed to do it, right? So you can take that feedback, and then you can, it'll be your responsibility to meet with your teacher. Your teacher will have a resubmission policy within their class. Resubmission policies could be that you have to attend office hours to do a resubmission. It could be that you might have to, they might look at your grades and say, well, it's no wonder you didn't do so well on it. You didn't do these 3 classwork assignments. Complete these 3 classwork assignments, even though they were for 0 points, because they're going to help you on this final assessment. Complete those 3, and then I'll give you the opportunity to make corrections, right? So your teacher will have that. That'll be posted in each of your classes so that you'll know ahead of time. The big piece of this also is that you're going to know before you start your unit. You're going to know, what is your target? What do you need to do as a student? And you're going to know, if I need to redo something, how do I redo that? How do I get a second chance to redo that? If that makes sense.
So when you do test corrections, would you do them for like full credit, or will you for like 75% partial, like, or no?
So we're talking about whether or not you can meet that standard. So then in essence, that would be considered full credit. But remember, we're not working for percentages. We're working about whether or not you can do that standard. Your reassessment, your teacher might turn around and say, you know what? I'm not going to give you this multiple choice piece. Instead, I'm going to give you this topic, and you need to give me a paragraph explaining the same concept that was in that multiple choice test, but I now want you to explain it to me in a paragraph or 2, right? So they might alter the assessment, but you're still assessing the same standard, if that makes sense.
Yes, you can potentially get full credit for your
Any other questions, even from my online folks? Well, we're right at about 3:45. We have recorded this. I'm not sure if student advisory wants us to do another one of these in a month or so, or when they want us back. But you can always reach me for questions. You can reach out to the student advisory committee, and they can collect the questions from the student body, put them together and send them to me. We could do any of those and do our best to answer any of those questions. Yeah. That's okay.
Like, would there be specific training that teachers would be to like reach out with like all the standards, like make sure that it's provided?
So we have been working on this since last year, January. And actually some have been working on it a little bit longer than that, but we have collectively as a staff been working on that. And we have all of our PD days that we do are targeted towards specific pieces of this. So we've already done that work of looking at our standards, aligning what we teach to our standards and such. And then we've been learning about, how to give appropriate and timely feedback and all of that. So yes.
That's also like an ongoing process.
Right.
So the teachers meet and they talk about what are some of the best ways that students are receptive to feedback. And that's just kind of like a continual learning that everyone does, myself. Great question.
And we'll be doing the learning next year as well, like continuing, and every time because something new is always going to come up. The state's going to come out with new standards. So then we have in a certain subject. So then we're going to have to start over again.
are specified in the Department of Education in Colorado. But they are only changed every 10 years. So they go through this like lengthy process. So in 2020, it was about a 2-3 year lapse for that. And so we have been looking at standards, and we've had multiple times throughout the last 2 years where teachers are reviewing those standards and they know where we're really heading. And so they just became official in 2020. 2021 school year. So last year, they should have been incorporating that. Again, it's a learning process, so it's something you get readily. You shouldn't see too much change in what you're currently, and it will only get better. I think the hardest part here at STEM, in all honesty, is that students are readily meet standards of the state, and we want to really accelerate doing those standards. And teachers want those enriching and engaging skills and opportunities to show their work. Show it. It'll be 10 years. before they
2028. All right, if there's no other questions, I do want to respect the time of the students we have online. And then thank you all for coming. And again, if you have additional questions, you are more than welcome to send them my way, or you can send them to the Student Advisory Council and they'll gather them for us. But thank you all.
Thank you.
Awesome question.
Yes.
Fantastic.
captured our questions so that.
No kidding. And the way they were.